Sorry, everyone. Don't know what happened there.
Yeah, sorry about that. Hi. That was fun.
Hello, everyone.
Let's get that shared again.
Okay, I thought it was just me. I was like, no technology.
Yeah.
I'm glad to know I wasn't the only one. Okay.
All right. When we're back.
We are back. Sorry about that all. See, I thought it was just me too. Good. All right. So, oh, you gotta love Monday mornings. So, to kind of piggyback on where I was right before we kind of had a little technologically error. The session today, what we hope we would do is give you all an opportunity to get involved in our session, and we're going to offer some think, pair, share activity. We're going to offer a chance for you to kind of use the antidote on your Zoom in order for you to kind of talk a little bit and kind of really get involved on this. We decided to do it as failure is not an option, success coaching through the enrollment process for first gens. I'll be talking a little later on what success coaching is for our population, and my colleague Erica will also be talking about what strategies we have done through our campus that we hope that you will either take back to your institution, either to incorporate into a success coaching that already exists, or perhaps you're thinking about implementing a success coach at your institution. So that being said, I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues to have themselves introduce them, and we'll get right started.
Hi, I'm Erica. I work as an educational advisor through our career and counseling services at Delaware County Community College. I am also, as you might have guessed, a success coach. You'll hear a little bit about our role and what that looks like, and I'll show you how, as Amber mentioned, how we're implementing it from that angle.
All right. And I'm Darren Lipscomb. Good morning. I'm the director of the admissions office at Delaware County Community College. A pleasure to be with all of you virtually this morning. I'm really just here for moral support. Now, I'll be getting you started this morning. With that, we'll transition into the presentation. Starting with just a little background. So the focus of this particular presentation, considering that first generation can be defined in a couple of different ways. Well, our focus is just undergraduates whose parents don't have a bachelor's degree, and at students at Delaware County Community College, as with many institutions, they self-identify. For our students, they self-identify on the application for admission into the college, and we track it from there. Now, just pretty much in line with what we're seeing nationally, the enrollment breakdown at Delaware County Community College consists of about 60% of students, 60% of students at the college are first generation by the definition that we provided earlier. And then that's based off of students who responded. We do have some students who don't respond. About 20% of students who complete an application don't indicate whether they're first generation. So that's something to be taken into account. But when considering students who do respond, yeah, about 60% of those students are indeed considered first generation. Similarly, at the national level, again, you're seeing about 56%. This is based on RTI, which is also based on NCES. But I think that's big. It's just the significant number of students who are first generation across the country. And with that, we're just curious, as presenters, how many of you are first generation, by show of hands? Seeing a few. Me too. Oh, hi, Morgan. Yeah, so I mean, I think that it is. There's a number of us, and just thinking about, ways in which we can support them. Thinking about really some of the things that we didn't know when we were navigating the process of enrolling at college ourselves, and thinking about how that's changed over the years. Whoops. So thinking about more background around this population, first and foremost, it's a financial issue. Less than half of the financial resources of continuing generation students are available to this particular population. We're also seeing a high concentration of these students in private for-profits and community colleges like ourselves. And then, of course, another unfortunate stat that we're seeing is that these students are more likely to leave after their first year of being enrolled at the college. Other couple others, these students are more likely to have kids of their own or dependents in general. These students are more likely to be entering college later, so more likely to be your non-traditional age students. They're also more likely to be part-time or less likely to enroll full-time, and also less likely to attain a degree. I think the one key piece that we had to highlight here, however, is that they're not to be considered a monolith. They're not to be confused with a monolith. There are certainly some significant differences within this population that we want to account for, and that we want to account for in this presentation, but also in our everyday practices at our institutions. All right. And speaking of differences, just curious, if you can, and I believe you guys can all use if you use the annotate feature on your tab, on your bar, you can actually, if you could do me a favor and just highlight any differences that you may see here between these two images. I'm seeing more scribbles. Okay. Oh, whoops. All right. Good catch. Another catch. All right. Somebody's on fire here. You've done this before, obviously. Right. And all right, if I'll let somebody, we'll take a second to get another one, and let's talk about it. I think you guys get the idea. The reason that we really wanted to do this exercise is just considering the subtlety of the differences that we may see, that we may encounter in our students, but they're differences nonetheless. We don't want to overlook those differences. They are important distinguishing features among our students, and those features do exist. Those differences do exist among this population. Oops, and I'm going to clear this. All right. Thank you for entertaining that. So recognizing the differences. So again, I think one of the things that we mentioned earlier, just in how we identify who our first generation students are. Well, 24% of students who are considered first generation, well, neither parent has, 24% of students have identified themselves as first generation, and as a part of that, neither parent has any post-secondary experience, so hasn't gone to college at all. 56% of students, however, have identified themselves as first generation under that model under the definition that we're using today, which is that neither parent has completed a bachelor's degree. So they may have some college, may have some college experience, but have not completed a bachelor's degree. 59% of these students, so any of the students that are included here, 59% of those students are also the first among their siblings to attend college, which is also important. But what else? I am curious what other folks have to share. There are lots of differences for us to consider here. So if you could actually consider some of those differences in the chat. And I'll wait a second while folks chat it up a little bit. And just to clarify, these are differences. What other differences might exist between students that are considered first generation? Children of immigrants versus not. Thank you. Amount of financial need they have met versus unmet. Agreed. Gotcha. Nuclear family makeup. Family makeup is big. Incarcerated, recently released from incarceration. Definitely big. Social capital, so big, and there's so many different forms of it, from student having the opportunity to participate in mentorship programs and other opportunities to network, whether it be with counselors or friends and family. It's great point. Quality of high school preparation, also big. Nothing to supplement that was taking place in the school, or less opportunities to supplement what's taking place in school. This is great. Thank you, guys. I really do appreciate it, and I'll certainly acknowledge if I get a couple more of these. But again, we just want to really highlight some of these other factors, these other variables that exist within the lives of our students who identify as first generation. They're very important, and we certainly want to consider this as we develop programming to provide support to these students, because one size doesn't fit all. It doesn't, and we just want to make sure that we're aware of that. There we go. So, and with that, we're going to transition over to just talking about, some of the things that may stop us from providing adequate support at our institution, considering some of these different differences or needs among our students. Amber?
Right, so we've actually identified some of the barriers that are common at our institution, and they may look a little familiar to you as well. So one of the things we looked at was, the financial aid. That's usually one of the biggest barriers that students coming onto campus may face. A lot of times they need FAFSA assistance, understanding the aid process, and really the verification, especially among our community college student population. That can be very challenging and very tricky, and oftentimes it can be a little frustrating because you're trying to navigate perhaps like the FAFSA. You have no idea what's going on in the FAFSA, and now you're asked to provide all this additional documentation based off of what you've put down. So students a lot of times find themselves stuck in that part of the enrollment funnel. The testing process itself, especially going into in light of COVID-19, a lot of the testing has now been offered online. This can be a challenge to a lot of students who may not have that technology piece, which is a few bullets down. Transportation is a big one. The transfer process can often be confusing. Registration, payment. You can see with these bullets, there's a lot of barriers that these students can face. Some might face one and get through and be okay. Others find themselves spanning themselves over multiple barriers, and again, can cause them to leave without, after that first year. One of the things we wanted to do, since we are a community college and we have some colleagues on here from 4 years and from other community colleges, is to just take a moment. Again, we're going to use that annotate button up top. If you could just use the stamper, highlight, what are some barriers at your institution? Just kind of want to see where our population of students, what is their biggest challenges that you face in your institution that you say? You can address more than one. So if you want to take a minute to just use that annotate. And if there's any others that we missed, definitely put them in. Great. Financial aid, the biggie. Mm-hmm. Support system, yep. Awesome. And we'll do one more quick minute just to kind of see. Okay, great. So yeah, it looks like, we kind of are across the board in a lot of our, situations that we find first generation students facing. And what now we bring into is that support systems. So when we were looking at the barriers in our institution and first generation students, and eventually, all students, not just first gen, but initially what we decided to do was enter in a support system to help these students navigate these barriers. So Delaware County Community College decided to incorporate the support system of what we call success coaching. And success coaching can also be called academic coaching as well. So moving into success coaching. Whoops. I didn't know that would, I had no idea that would carry through. Hold on one second. Let me just erase our annotations. Actually, I think, Darren, you have control of that. There you go. So what are success coaches? So again, it can be known as two things. The term has been used intertwined. It first emerged in 2000 in order to increase retention. That was its initial use. And it came out of a program some of you may have on your campus now or have had called the Academic Coaching for Excellence, or the ACE program. And really that was a coach to work with students from the application process and encourage and support that goal setting, self-learning, and behavioral change. And now it's really become more of an intervention strategy. It's emerging. There's research that is now starting to become available, although it is scattered. They're still doing a lot of research on it, but it's emerged as an intervention strategy borrowing from traditional support services. So really coaches are a myriad of counseling, advising, tutoring. A really big one is mentoring, and many others. We've also seen it as the key person, a person who is that one-on-one point person. So really that coach is working with a student and they are helping them navigate from application all the way through to completion. If you're at a four-year institution, that could be also graduation as well. So at Delaware County Community College, our success coaches, we decided to run this pilot in the fall of 2018. We start out with 12 volunteers, and we all came from enrollment services and career and counseling. So Erica is one of our success coaches from the career and counseling area. And we are on all of our college's campuses, and we span from Delaware County to Chester County. And each college campus is unique in its own needs of our students. Each coach, so every week we get a report from our institutional effectiveness that shows our first generation students who have self-identified in their application process. I go through the list and then I kind of farm out to our coaches. I do it usually by campus. With COVID-19, everybody's kind of been handling the online piece of it. So coaches can get anywhere up to 10, 20, 40, depending on the week of how many students have self-identified as a first generation student. And then the coaches contact these students to offer the one-on-one support. We do utilize our CRM. We have Salesforce through TargetX, and we have 2 emails that go out to the students that identify their coaches, give them a welcome, give them a we're here for you if you need us. And a lot of times we do have students that will reach out to the coaches and say, hey, I just need some help with XYZ, whether it be financial aid or registration. But a lot of times we know our students, and we know, especially I was a first generation student, a lot of times they're nervous to ask for that help. A lot of times, you know, they feel like kind of like they're in this alone. So they're hesitant. So our coaches contact students one-on-one. They'll do it through email or phone, and then make that connection with their students and start that process. Sometimes our students are a 1 and, you know, thank you so much, I really appreciate it. And then we really don't hear from them. We monitor their process, but we may not hear from them. They got that help to navigate through FAFSA. Other times, as Erica will tell you, we do have students that now have that point person. They have somebody who they can relate to. They have that friendly face in a very large crowd. And that's their point person. So I saw that there was a question that how does this differ from an academic advisor? They overlap. They overlap. It's a great question. So a success coach is a point person. So they are actually going to go back, and Erica's going to explain a little bit more about the role of the coaches, but you'll see that a coach can be an academic advisor. I myself am a coach. I work in the admissions office. I work with a student, I get them through. I never want to pass them off to somebody, but we'll form a connection. So I might reach out to Erica and say to Erica, hey, Erica, I have this first generation student I'm working with. He or she needs a little bit of help in the registration process. Can I give him or her your information? And Erica will email me back and say, absolutely. And then we form that collaboration. So a lot of this is a big collaboration process.
Okay, so when we start with the coaching students, the introductions, Amber touched on it. We do initially use Salesforce, and Salesforce is what kicks off that kind of like, I want to say like an introduction campaign where it's like, hey, this is your success coach. This is what they can help you with. Please feel free to reach out to them. And students can respond directly to that email and it goes to the coach. So it doesn't actually kick to like a box to nowhere. And then the next part I kind of call like onboarding. So this is where, okay, so they get the initial email. They might get another email from Salesforce saying, hey, you know, we're here to help you, etc. So then we get our list in the form of an Excel spreadsheet. So we'll be able to reach out to them that has their contact information. We can say, hey, you know, just want to check in, see how things are going. Have you registered? Have you filed for financial aid? Kind of having like little prompting conversations. I did put on here COVID style. So what we did in our area is, because the bulk of our coaches currently are in enrollment services and through the advising department, we got really busy when we're trying to, you know, welcome in the first generation students, make sure that they have what they need. We were transitioning online because of COVID. Then there were other departments where they're not being utilized as much because they have more of like the hands-on in-person work. So what we did is we brought on some interim success coaches where we kind of had like a bit of a crash course. And again, as Amber mentioned, success coaching, at least through our institution, is definitely more of like encouraging students to be a self-advocate as opposed to solely advising or financial aid. So the idea is that you have a point person that kind of guides you in the direction for where you need to go and says, hey, when you get that information, circle back. So it's not really your job or your role to have all of the answers, but more so to encourage and give students. I noticed that was mentioned in the one of the barriers is having that confidence, right? Like feeling unsure about who to talk to. It's really our job as success coaches to make sure that we're saying like, hey, you need to talk to financial aid about this. And I always say, try to take it a little step further to help them identify the specific questions that they need to ask. So a student comes and they're like, oh, I'm struggling with financial aid. You're like, okay, well, what about financial aid are you struggling with? Trying to like really narrow down their questions. That way when they go on to that next step, they're asking very specific questions. So when we utilize our interim success coaches, we had people from all different departments spread out across all of our campuses calling students and saying, hey, you know, have you checked in with your success coach? How are things going? And then if students were saying like, hey, I don't have access to a laptop, or hey, I don't have access to the internet, etc., we gave them a little cheat sheet. So I'm actually going to share a quick screen with you. So one of the things that we did is we came up with like a quick little cheat sheet, and this is really helpful if you create it. It's helpful just in general, but particularly when people are working remotely or you're onboarding people and you're not really sure where to go. So what we did is we said, okay, well, here are the most common resources students are going to request, and here's how you can reach them. So this gets modified. So for instance, when this was first implemented, I don't think we had a number for testing. So it has to be modified as it goes. So, okay, well, if students have questions about, you know, community resources, we have an FAQ page, and we try to make it that way it's something that the success coach can pull up really directly and be able to share with the students on the spot. And then we also had some conversation starters and a voicemail script. So when you're onboarding people to do this work, you definitely want to have it as a conversation because you're trying to build that relationship, but it's very hard to talk to a student when you're like, how are things going? Good. Okay. And give you one word answers, right? So it is about trying to like kind of pull out the information that you need. That way you can make it just as successful as possible. So there's another screen that I'm going to share with you. So, oops, so new share. And how we also share with students is, so what I do is we are also using Canvas. We just started using Canvas as a way to reach out to students. So we do have that email aspect where we are sending them email to their student email accounts. I don't know how your students are, but many times our students are like, what student email account, right? So we're trying to find different ways to reach out to students. So if I give a student a phone call and I say, hey, you know, have you logged onto your DCCC email account? Or have you checked out Canvas? Canvas is where your classes are going to be held. And I've also created a page for you. So this is something that is also shared in the Commons. I know that I have it shared for DCCC, but I can also have it a template that can be shared out with everyone. That way you can just search for it in the Commons. But there's two ways in which students can navigate it. So they can actually navigate it through here, or they can utilize the modules. So I'll click on modules to start. And you can see that there are a lot of things that I took out. So some of the things that we had mentioned as part of the barriers are like transportation. So I work primarily between the Upper Darby Center and the Southeast Center, which are two Delaware County campuses. So what I did is I had campus specific. So if a student wanted to know what our shuttle schedule was taking students from the Southeast Center to the Marple campus, they could see that. There's also a Marple campus map, etc. Right now, because of COVID and our closing, I unpublished it, that way I don't confuse people. Some of the other things that we had talked about, financial aid is always, you know, the burning question for most students. So what I did is I worked with one of our success coaches that does financial aid, and I said, hey, you know, can you take a look at this? Is there anything that we can add? So making sure that our links aren't broken, going through this bad boy, making sure that you put in little disclaimers. So for instance, this was put in light of COVID, showing them how to access it using screenshots. So I always try to encourage students, hey, have you taken a look at this? So as an academic advisor, I previously was also one of our advisors for Phi Theta Kappa. So I did a lot of scholarship workshops. So I did one that's specific for this, specific for DCCC. So I think it's important that whatever area it is that you're coming from, that you're trying to play up your strengths in a way. And then the areas that are not your strengths, working with other people to make sure that you're creating those strong streamline. You're streamlining your information and you're creating as strong of an overview as possible. Another area that I have here is, so sometimes students can be very intimidated about, you know, reaching out to you, right? They're like, well, I don't really know you. I can't see you. So I like to include something that's a little more personal. This is me. Here's my information. And this highlights exactly what it is that I can help them with. So if they're like, oh man, you know, I know that Erica had told me before what her exact role is, but I don't really remember what it is. They can actually come in here and be able to see the information. Yeah, and this one, I don't think I have this open at the moment. Yeah. So another thing that I like to do as part of like a connector is to add in things that are specific to their campus. So for example, I run a Stand Up for Success workshop series, which is really about helping our developmental students not only get through their classes, but understanding like college terminology, just becoming more acclimated to college in general. And so I'll encourage the students to attend. So I'll always try to have the most update information and make it as specific as possible. Something that is, of course, generalized in the sense that, so my students are primarily from the Upper Darby Center, or they're online students. So I'll try to have more online Upper Darby Center resources. If you are somebody who has to go between 3 campuses, how can you create a calendar, for instance? So see if I can bring this bad boy up. This one, I did shut it off since there really isn't anything on there, but each semester I create a Word doc and I'll say, hey, you know, you can download this calendar and then you can add information on here. You can print it out, you can put things in there. So it's really about trying to give your students the tools to be successful, and also they can also start as like conversation starters. So if you start to peel away sort of like the generalized statements, generalized questions, and you can get down to more of like the crux of what their questions are, helping them define them, then it'll also help you define what kind of materials you want to use for them. So for instance, with my students, I find that they really do struggle with knowing like what the deadlines are, you know, what's add drop for an accelerated session versus a regular session. When are the workshops being held, etc. So finding a place where I can put that in one core area is something that I do, and it's something that I'll help my colleagues, if they're on a different campus, be able to modify for themselves. Okay, so I'm just gonna pause this for a second. Okay, so for the next part, we're going to go into a think, pair, share, where you guys can kind of chat about some of the stuff, some of the questions that might have come up, as well as what you're doing at your campus, and then we can circle back.
So for the Think, Pair, Share, we're going to have you go into breakout rooms, which were predetermined. There's just 2 questions that we wanted you to think about as you went into these Think, Pair, Shares. So if you use success coaching at your institution, can you share some of your highlights, best practices, learning moments? Even if you call it academic coaching, again, those terms are interchangeable. And if you would like to begin employing a success coaching model at your institution, what takeaways have you identified that will help you in getting started? So we're going to take about maybe 4 to 5 minutes for you to be in the breakout sessions. We'll come back and we'll kind of do a quick closeout and get some of your thoughts on both of those items. So Greg, if you wouldn't mind, if you could do our breakout sessions. And then we'll see you all in a little bit. I'm going to breakout room 4, who's ever going that way.
And I'll see you in breakout room 5.
Hello, everyone. So we hope that you all had some really good conversations. So we wanted to take a minute, if you would like. We have really a minute left. Just if you wanted to share, you can utilize the chat button, or if you wanted to raise your hand, we can unmute you briefly, just to kind of, we'll take one or two thoughts about, how about we do one from highlights, best practices, and learning moments, and then how about one from takeaway. So if anybody would like to unmute or use the chat button, just kind of talk a little bit. Anybody willing to share? So Morgan said, have you thought about incorporating success coaching from serious inquiry to applicants? That is a great question. So yes, down the road, what our hope is, we are getting our success coaching. Again, it was piloted in 2018. It has grown in leaps and bounds, and we are seeing successful results. So that being said, we really would love to begin incorporating other aspects of a student when they come in, especially if they're that serious inquiry before they apply, because oftentimes the application process can be a little daunting too. So we are looking at it. It's definitely something to do. And yes, the success coach student will stay with that coach through their duration of the college. For us, if anyone else uses success coaching at their colleges, it'd be interesting to see how they also do it. But we also have our success coaches. Now, if there is somebody that, we all have personalities and we all have different learning styles. So if there is somebody who gets partnered up with a coach who maybe isn't their learning style, they can say, hey, I'd love to, try a different coach. A lot of times we have students who also self-identify, they get connected with a coach, and then they tell a friend, and then their friend comes along and asks for a coach as well. So that was something we wanted to kind of also throw in, is that it's not only just somebody who self-identifies, it's also through recommendations and word of mouth from other students. So we have our information up on the screen here. You can also find us on our DCC website as well, but please feel free to email us, call us. This is all going to be recorded as well, so you'll have access to this recording. But reach out. We are definitely happy to chat. We can set up additional Zoom information as well. So on behalf of us, we want to thank you for attending our information. We hope you had a good time. Remember to do those surveys and the Act 48 credit that is also on the main page. And enjoy the rest of conference, everyone. Take care.
All right. Thank you, folks. Pleasure to see everybody. All right. Dennis.
I know, I saw Dennis down there. I saw Morgan.
Hi, I think I seen somebody who just joined us. We're actually finishing up, but happy to answer any questions if you have them.
I think that I recognize that person kind of popping in and out. I think.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
it may have been, yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Greg. We appreciate it.
Hey, you're welcome. You're welcome. Are you guys
Absolutely.
good with me ending it now? You
Oh,
guys
yeah.
Close it
Yeah,
out. Okay.
I think we're good. Yeah, we were it's always tough to be that first session right out of the.
Yeah, but it was good. We got good numbers right away. I mean,
Right?
Yeah.
Fun times.
Yeah.
This is great. No, this really was.
It's really,
It had a
really
nice
good.
little snag to keep us on our toes from the start.
I know. I saw everybody, all my colleagues. I was in like a Slack channel. Everybody goes, "I just got kicked out. What happened? What are we gonna do?" And they said, just restart it. It'll be okay. I was like, right.
Isn't that also a nice feeling though, when you're like it wasn't me.
I know. Yeah, I did not. I have my hands off my computer. I'm not near my keyboard.
Gotcha.
I always feel like super stressed about that. Like when I end something, I'm like,
Yeah.
It's like it was technology.
Well, hey, thank you guys again.
Thanks,
All
friend.
right. Thank
All
you
right, see ya.
guys. All
All
right.
right.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Nice meeting y'all. Bye-bye.
Bye.